You're listening to the Mind Your Business podcast, episode number 36. Today, we're talking all about how to ask better questions. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm James Wedmore, and I've built a 7-figure internet business that offers the financial freedom to do what I want, when I want. And I'm the first to say that hard work and hustle are not essential ingredients for your success. So, how do you build a thriving business from the inside out? This is the Mind Your Business podcast, featuring myself and co-host Phoebe Mroczek. All right, hello, listeners. Welcome to the call. James Wedmore here.
I'm Phoebe Mroczek.
And thank you for joining us for another episode of the Mind Your Business podcast. This one is all about asking better questions. Isn't that funny? That's all you got to do in order to turn it into a question.
Just up the inflection. That's why all the Aussies, you get a little confused because their intonations are a little funny.
They'll say like, "You're really great." That was really funny.
Exactly.
Is that a question? Do you question my comedic timing?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So this is something that I think is so important. And my intention with this episode for all of you is to take a dip into the question pool and sit there for a while. And really that's what you're going to see is our overarching message is, and we'll talk about this a little more as we dive into the episode, is that everyone is in such a hurry to get the answer. I mean, I see it on our YouTube videos, especially. Oh my goodness, just get to the answer. I need the answer. Everyone is so hungry for all the answers. And then ironically, they all say how overwhelmed they are because someone gave them the answers. Now they have to go do stuff, right? And what we want you to do is not be so hungry to get to the answer. In fact, we want you to stay in the question. Enjoy the unknown. Enjoy the question. You'll find why in a little bit here. But what we've really wanted to do with this episode is give you the opportunity and experience to come to the answers yourself, right? It's a little bit of intuition and realizing that you don't need a guru, you don't need an expert, you don't need a podcast, you don't need anything to start getting better clarity and more answers if you can simply change the questions that you're asking. So this episode is for you. If you feel stuck, alone, overwhelmed, frustrated, spread too thin, you'd feel like you don't have a plan, you don't know what your plan is, you're lost, you're going in different directions, you're trying to chase too many rabbits. If that sounds like you, you're going to want to pay close attention to this episode. And here's why. Here's some of the greatest quotes we have on this, okay? The first one is one I've been touting for years. It's the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. So true. So true. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions that you ask. And of course, Dale Carnegie was quoted as saying, effective leaders ask questions instead of giving orders.
I love that.
Powerful, right?
And I saw a quote from Tony Robbins, and he says, questions that we ask ourselves can shape our perception of who we are, what we're capable of, and what we're willing to do to achieve our dreams. I thought that was a great one. I love Tony Robbins. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. And this is, I feel like people are going to hear this and they're going to say, yeah, that's as easy that I want to know the secrets to a $1 million empire. They're going to, this isn't what I want to talk about. I want to talk about, what are the steps, right? And what I really want you to get is that this is the access to understanding your own path and seeking your own way. And maybe some of you heard people talk about, yeah, I know the quality of my life is, because I tell it all the time and people just say yes, and they thumbs it up, they like it, they say so true. But how many of us do we know are walking around asking crappy questions, right?
Well, and I think that also we tend to ask, some of the questions that I was asking, and when I get stuck, these are my go-to questions are like, what's wrong with me? Like, why does this keep happening to me? Or why doesn't anyone see my value? Why doesn't anyone like me? Like, those are the questions. And then that just pulls me right down into a spiral, out of control, and I can't seem to get out of it. So if anyone feels like that, I think we've all kind of been there.
I think it's human nature. I think that's our default way. I think the way our brains are wired, we want to know why. We need to, most people, right? They want to know why something is the way it is or why I'm this way. And the problem is that we seem to have more of an inquiry into the why behind what's not working. And why is it this way? And the first thing we're going to do is tell you to stop asking that why, right? Because crappy questions produce crappy answers. So here's what happens. When you say, what's wrong with me? Or why can't I succeed? Your brain naturally, like if you just say it and then pause, you're going to hear a voice tell you something, even if it's just kind of like an image or a feeling or something. The brain, whatever it is that's inside us, it can't help but answer whatever question we put in front of it. And so when you ask, what's wrong with me? Some answer has to come up. And the scary thing is that when we give ourselves an answer, like, well, I'm too short or I'm too tall, whatever it is, right? Then that starts to become our reality. Not that you are short or tall, but I will not be successful because I'm too short or I'm too tall. And you will continue to just find evidence, because that's what the ego does, is it creates these beliefs and statements, and then it can't be ever made wrong. So it continues to find evidence of it. See, there we go. There's a tall guy who's really successful. So there you go. Or, oh, now I can't, wear heels because I'm already too tall and that's why I'm going to fail. And I can't go on, the stupid logical things that we do. So I'm obviously giving a very oversimplistic example just to demonstrate the ridiculousness of this, but also the harsh reality that we all do this. So this is a discipline. This is something you're going to have to be really conscious about. It doesn't happen overnight, but we got to start asking better questions. Give up trying to find out the reason why something didn't happen the way you wanted it to happen in terms of a identity about yourself. Now you can say, why didn't this launch go the way we want it to go? And we'll get into those questions in a little bit. But anytime you say, okay, this launch didn't go the way I wanted it to go, what we do with our brain is we say, so I'm a failure. And then we go, why am I a failure? Right? And when you ask a question like that, you're going to get an answer. And so what we want to do is start to ask more empowering questions. And that is what this podcast is about. It's an invitation to ask better questions. And if for our woo-woo energy fans, because I am very woo-woo energy because it just keeps working for me and I keep seeing results in my life. In fact, I'll have to tell you a story about someone on our team. She's going to love, because she listens to the podcast as well, how she's been jumping into this and the results that she's been getting from this. So we'll talk about that in a second. So try and remind me. But from an energetic standpoint, questions carry with them a vibration. So if we look at everything in terms of frequency or vibration, just like a radio has a radio dial, we're going to tune to 95.5. We're going to listen to classic rock, KLOS. Turn to a different one. We're going to hear like a different frequency, different radio station. Well, a question is the same way. A question of what's wrong with me? Why did I fail? Why do I suck? Why do I look this way? Why does nobody like me? Is a question of a lower vibration and a lower frequency. And a answer must match that same vibration. Plain and simple. So what is the energy of a what's wrong with me? It's a low, depressing, low self-esteem, low confidence question. You can't say, there's no way you're going to come up with an answer that's like, because you're too awesome for everybody on the planet. They just can't handle you. Like that just doesn't happen, right? So we want to, obviously, when we get clear on what we want and the results that we want, we ask questions that are of that same vibration and we can get the clarity. This is really where you can start to take advantage of intuition. We had an entire episode introducing you into using intuition to make decisions and give you clarity, path, direction in your business. But one of the biggest ways is through questions. Okay. So in a moment, I'm going to tell you what the first question I always ask is. I ask it like probably 20 times a day, maybe more. I want to quickly interrupt and tell a story of one of our team members. Can I do that, Phoebe?
Yeah, of course. I know who you're going to talk about.
Who am I going to talk about?
Jilly.
How'd you know that?
E squared.
How'd you know that?
I'm all over Snapchat, man.
Oh my goodness. So I don't know why she doesn't teach Snapchat to me. It's hilarious. Unbelievable.
Kids these days,
right? I'm like, I don't know how to use this thing. I snap and I chat, not necessarily in that order, but I'm kind of getting it. So anyways, she went on her honeymoon. She had her wedding 2 weeks after ours. And she said, hey, any good books you recommend while I'm on my trip? And I was like, yeah, careful what you wish for.
Question.
It is. So I sent her E Squared, and E Squared by Pam Grout is a book that talks about really like taking the scientific method of testing all this energy the woo-woo stuff. People are now call it too woo-woo. But really grounds it in some proof, in reality. Gives you a bunch of experiments. I think there's 9 experiments. And she's done the first 2 with like mind-blowing results.
Car. I heard about the green car.
Yeah. So the second one is what they call the VW Jetta principle. Is, and Tony Robbins mentions this is the reticular activating system, where like when you focus on one thing, you tend to see more of that one thing. That's still another way, whether we want to talk about it from a science, a neurological, or a energetic conversation. It's, one way in which the law of attraction shows up is you focus on one thing, you start to see it everywhere. And so she focused on a green car, and I think she saw like 27 green cars in like the first afternoon. It was like, she started it yesterday at 5 and it's like 10 a.m. the next day. And she saw like 27 green cars, and she's like taking pictures of all of them, and really cool. The first assignment was something about like see a sign or a message from the universe in the first 48 hours. Mm-hmm. They got one, someone that owed them $500 who hadn't paid that money to them in a really long time. All of a sudden just says, here it is. I know I owed you this for a long time.
I mean, that just sounds fake. That's so
I know. And we're sitting here like trying to, because that's what we do. We live in a left brain world. So everything that happens that's of the non-physical, the energetic, we have to synthesize it through the left brain. Our brain immediately goes into, what's the story behind this? How this is just a coincidence? Like, what's the real thing here? And, that's what the brain does. It's fine. I thought that was really cool. So from the energetic standpoint, we're talking about how the questions that you ask will literally raise your vibration and raise the vibration of the answer that you are attracting. I mean, it's the same thing. When we talk about things like law of attraction, a lot of people say, close your eyes and ask for a red Ferrari. Where the hell's my red Ferrari? Mm-hmm. No. But if you close your eyes and think about the right question, all of a sudden one thought attracts another thought. It's all the same thing, folks. So the first question I ask, and the most common question I ask, and we've mentioned in other episodes, what do I want? And that's a hard question to answer. So here's the cheater's guide to answering it. What is the essence of what I want? I love that word. What's the essence, right? Because I can ask you, Phoebe, what do you want? And you probably feel a little uncomfortable, probably being put on the spot right on the podcast too. Like, what if what I want isn't the right thing? What if it's not big enough? What if it's too big? What if people would listen and say, yeah, right. Who is she to want that? Right? But then I go, well, what is the essence of what I want?
We played this game a couple of years ago when you asked me that, and I said, I don't know. And you go, you do know. And then we went into like, what is the essence of what you want? And then you can just list out a million things. Well, I want to feel free. I want to feel feminine. I want to feel powerful, significant, important, all of those things. And then how do you get there? And I think with also detaching what that end result is going to look like, or what the answer is going to come back to you, like that just helps so much more when you know what you want to feel or what the essence of what you want is, and then not being attached to how that shows up for you. Right.
And we haven't even gotten to the how yet, right? Because I can sit here and keep asking, okay, what else? What else? Anything else? Is that it? Until I have literally like wrung the towel dry of desire. There's nothing left. You know what I mean? And that's the point, is like, let's get it all out on the table here. And asking those great questions puts you into the vibration of that. Desire is going to attract that answer. So that's the first thing. I always ask that. It's always changing for all of us. Mm-hmm. I work with a coach, and every 10 weeks we work on our goals. And I looked at my first set of 10-week goals and what's really important to me, and I changed it slightly. Our big thing, I don't know if I've mentioned on the podcast, is the next big thing in my life that Chelsea and I are really excited about is purchasing a home, our dream home in Laguna Beach. And that's a big step for us because homes aren't exactly cheap in Laguna Beach. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff involved with there. And originally it was like move in by December 31st, 2016. And that gave me a lot of agita, as they say, agita. I softened it a bit by changing that to just being pre-approved at, this price, level for this budget of a home by December 31st. Because I realized wait a second, I don't need to be in a home. I just want to know comfortably I have the freedom to choose, and I don't want to rush the selection process. It's like getting in line at a buffet of your favorite buffet restaurant and someone's like, come on, just pick something, grab it and go. And it's like, no, I want to actually enjoy looking from a place of knowing that, hey, if I want this, I could make an offer today.
Yeah, I think I've set or created so many goals, and then I realize how much anxiety that gives me, because I feel like I need to have that goal and I need to have it completed by a certain date. And I'm not really going within and seeing it's not even realistic. It's just, is that what feels right to me right now? And I have found myself in a situation where I hired someone for a VIP day and it was way out of my price range, but I was like, I'm going to do it. This lady's awesome. I'm going to go for it. And then leading up probably 2 months before, I couldn't sleep. It was like hurting my head. I had such anxiety and I was like, why am I making this? Like, what am I doing? And why am I setting this goal for myself to have this when it doesn't feel right? And so I think maybe for you, like when you looked at your house, it just didn't feel right. And, being in line at a buffet, like no one wants to feel rushed or have anxiety around their goals. And that shouldn't be the way that you set your goals.
Yeah, I think even this first question is, don't even put any type of time constraints on it, because the moment, like what you're saying, Phoebe, you put that limit on there and it doesn't feel right, something's got to change. If we can just get clarity on what excites you, like even if you said, all right, maybe not what you want right now, but what's something that you want in 5 to 10 years from now? What's something that you expect that you will have in your life at one point, like when you grow up, right? Just to identify your desires. I think that's always important, because you could go interview people on the street and ask 9 out of 10 people, what do you want? I don't know. And they're going to like think of some like made up answer that's popular, right? So I think that's always important to have that. What is important to you? Okay. Now, the next question we want to give you is from a fantastic book. I'm not sure if we've mentioned it on the podcast yet. I'm not finished reading this, but I've read the majority of it and I absolutely love it. And the further I'm getting into the book, the more I'm actually enjoying it, which is usually like the opposite. Usually the author gives the core premise and the concept really quick and early in the book. And you're like, okay, I got it. All right, now this is just filler. And I'm finding the deeper I go with this, the more I'm just like, wow. And the book is called The One Thing by Gary Keller. And it centers around a thing, which is a question that prompts the one thing in your life. And it's so fascinating, and he talks a lot in the book about the power of questions. And the question that he asks is, what's the one thing that you can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Now, remember when I talked about being overwhelmed? If you feel overwhelmed or too much on the to-do list and not enough time, this is a question you can start with. And you want to play with this. What's the one thing you can do today? What's the one thing you can do this week? What's the one thing that you can do this quarter and this year? And actually, I would reverse it. Look at it backwards. Like start with the year. What's the one thing I could do this year that make this year extraordinary? Then this quarter, this month, this week, and this day right now. And see what comes up. See what answers present themselves. Yeah,
because when you're in that spiral of the like, what's wrong with me? Why is this happening? All this, it gets really difficult to kind of see the light. And so if you can focus on that one thing, I had something the other day where I was getting really overwhelmed. I was trying to plan something and I just went back to this question. It's funny that we're mentioning the book now, but I just went back to that question. I'm like, what can I do right now that's going to either like just kind of make me feel better and also make this whole process seem so much easier? And identifying that, I think, alleviates so much stress and resistance and really unlocks that freedom to create and to, explore the possibilities.
I want to read a quote from Gary Keller's book, The One Thing, because what he calls this is the focusing question. The question, what's the one thing, right? Extraordinary results are rarely happenstance. They come from the choices we make and the actions we take. The focusing question always aims you at the absolute best of both by forcing you to do what is essential to success. Make a decision. But not just any decision. It drives you to make the best decision. It ignores what is doable and drills down to what is necessary, to what matters. So I thought that was great. It's a fantastic book. Again, it's called The One Thing by Gary Keller. Every time I share it, talk about it, someone's like, oh my gosh, that's the greatest book ever. So definitely go and pick it up. And again, what we want to do in this episode is, in a moment, we want to leave you with 8 empowering questions that you can start to ask yourself every day. However, where this becomes powerful, where the challenge is, if you choose to accept it, where the discipline comes into play is it's easy to ask these questions when you're like, oh, I'm great. I'm walking on the clouds because I'm listening to James and Phoebe talk and I'm going on a walk and everything is, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Where the challenge comes in is, can you ask these questions when you're in a breakdown? And a breakdown is simply an experience that you're having observing something unwanted in your life. Something is in the way from what you want, right? You're planning a big launch. The day before you launch, your launch manager quits. Okay. Our brain can go all kinds of places like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail. This whole launch is going to come crashing down. Okay. Those are just conclusions you made from a very simple action that happened, which is your launch manager quit. Okay. But in that moment, you're in a breakdown. And the last thing you want to do is go for a walk and skip and laugh and wave at all the neighbors and have little cartoon birds float and chirp on your shoulder and ask a bunch of questions while listening to this podcast. So again, it's easy to do it when you are a Disney character at the happily ever ending part, right? But can you ask these questions when you're in a breakdown, when there's drama in your life? But James, I never have drama. I don't have breakdowns. There are no problems. Everything is always awesome. Well, that means you're not up to big enough stuff. Plain and simple. Breakdowns happen right before you break through to whole new levels of living outside of your comfort zone. And that doesn't happen unless you set big goals and you have big visions, big dreams. So for those of you who do have a big life and you're playing a big game, we know that breakdowns are inevitable. So are the breakthroughs. And you need to be equipped with as many tools as possible. And these questions, I think, can help. But before we address those 8 questions, I think we really want to talk about the importance of what we're saying here, staying in the question.
Well, I think one thing when I was thinking about all of this, staying in the question was, if we go back to our childhood or even now at schools, companies, even our parents, our families, they reward us for coming up with the right answer, for being the first one with the right answer. And, you have your hand raised and you're at front of the class, but there's no real incentive to be the one that asks the best questions or to ask better questions. There's no reward for that. And I think that if we can identify that and see that for what it is, it makes a lot of sense why we don't ask the right questions. We kind of stay in the frantic chaos of the answers.
And what you have to realize is that even though we've been conditioned that the answer is good and, oh, yes, you have the answer actually cuts off all other answers and possibilities. Mm-hmm. So if I say, what's the most effective thing that I can do to make this next promotion a success, the moment you answer that question and decide that that is the answer, you are saying no to everything else. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. But what we're trying to get you to do is stay in the question a little bit longer. Wade in the pool of possibilities a bit longer by continuing to ask the question. Stay in the question, stay in the question, stay in the question. So here are 8 empowering questions that you can ask yourself every day. And the thing is a lot of these questions you're going to have to tailor. Okay. So before I ask these questions, one of the things you might want to maybe pause and get some clarity on is not just what do you want, even though we ask that question, I think that's important, but what are you committed to, right? Do you have a company culture, company values, personal commitments? Because a lot of that can help frame these questions a lot better, right? If you have a commitment to impacting your students, a question like, what is the one thing I can do today to make a profound impact on my students? So a lot of starting with these basic questions of, or not basic, but foundational questions of what's important to me and what am I committed to is a good, pre-work to do. And by the way, if you have your own question that you already do use, and we haven't mentioned it, I'd love if you'd share it with us. But obviously, if it works and it inspires you, if it gets you back on the horse when you're in a slump, keep doing it, right? This is about the topic of great questions in general. And if a question is working, keep using it. So here's the first of 8 empowering questions. And it's similar to the one we mentioned from Gary Keller. What is the one thing that I could do today that would have the impact on what is important to me? Right? So what's one thing I could do today that would have a profound impact on my business or, my marriage or, my health and fitness, whatever is something that's really important to you.
The second question is, how could I improve or contribute today? And I think I love the balance of those two because you're improving, but once you know who you're contributing to, are you contributing to your family, to your business, to your employees, employer, whatever it is, asking yourself that question. So making yourself better, but also staying in kind of a contribution state. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like these are themes for questions. Like you could tailor this. You could say, what is one thing I could do to contribute today? What is something I could do in the next 15 minutes to contribute or give back or, help others today? You get to own the question and make it yours. The secret here is just to try it on and see what comes of it. Question number 3, what would make tomorrow better than today? Or what's something that I could do to make tomorrow better than today, or even better than today?
The 4th question is, what is the best, most effective way to, and then insert whatever your desired result is. So I know when we are looking at like our hot seat, like mastermind questions, rather than like just throwing out some random, like, how do I do this? It's what is the best or most effective or most efficient or most cost effective way to achieve whatever the desired result is.
Right. Whether it's crush this webinar or execute this launch or hit our goal of $1 million, whatever it is, fill in the blank. Okay. Now, question 5 is especially important when you're in a breakdown. And a breakdown is that moment in time, we've all been there, where you've literally fallen off the horse. You feel like everything is crumbling down around you. Something's not working. Something external probably happened. Someone quit. Something broke. Someone didn't do their job. Something has gone wrong in your world. You've made this decision that it means you're not going to be able to pull it off. You're not going to get the results that you wanted to. You're not going to be as successful as you thought. That's a big breakdown, right? And if you can ask this question while you're in that breakdown, that's powerful, is simply, what is the lesson or takeaway for me here? What can I glean from this in order to not only prevent this from ever happening again, but also learn, grow, and improve? Or in short, what's the lesson? I'm always asking that. Yeah. And listen, not to be too braggadocious, but I find I rarely repeat or have a repeated experience, right? Like we'll have something, like an employee issue that becomes a big drama. I've seen people have the same employee issues over and over and over again. New employee, new face, same problem. Different day, different person, same problem. They'll be in a different launch, same issue. Because
that lesson keeps showing up for you until you actually learn it. And I think asking that question helps you kind of shine a light on what is the lesson here? Okay, now I can identify, I can take it on board, I can change the process, change whatever it is that has gone wrong. And then hopefully you've learned that lesson, gotten that takeaway, and then don't make that mistake again.
Yes.
So the 6th question is, what am I missing? And I think that's a really important one when you were just talking about earlier that the answer cuts off all the answers and possibilities. So for me, when I go, what am I missing? I either write it down or I just kind of sit there quietly for me, like just for a couple minutes and listen to all the things that come up. Because the second you're like, oh, that's what it was, and you kind of pinpoint it, well, you cut off all the other things that actually you could be missing. Maybe there are 10 things that you weren't thinking about, but just sitting there asking yourself that question, what am I missing? What am I missing? Can help identify those blind spots.
And that's the thing is that there are blind spots. Mm-hmm. It's a fact and it's unavoidable that we will always have blind spots. There are always things that we can't see because we're in it and we just can't see everything. We have a limited perspective. Asking this question, I believe, has the ability to give you more access to your blind spots, to be able to see what you might not be willing to see otherwise. And you have to be willing, when you ask this question, to be okay with being wrong, with that you don't know everything. I don't know everything. Phoebe doesn't know everything. So, we're constantly always looking, and that's really what self-awareness is, right? It's coming from a humbled place of, knowing that you don't know everything and that there's always more to learn, and it's a fun process. So can't ask that question assuming that, but I'm perfect and I don't ever get it wrong and I'm always right. What am I missing? You're not going to get an answer.
Yeah. And also like just not judging whatever comes up, because then I feel like that could then spiral you out of control again when you're like, what am I missing? This, why do I always do that? And then therein is the spiral. So you just go way out of control.
Let's go ahead and take a look at question number 7. This is a great one. Who could I connect with today or this week or right now in order to blank? Whether it's to get a specific result in your life, in your business, or it's just to make a deep connection with somebody, to feel connected in order to help somebody. Who can I connect with today in order to have a profound impact on them? Is it a friend, a family member, or since we're talking business, is it a potential joint venture partner? Someone maybe you met at an event or in a Facebook group and you want to connect with them on a deeper level. That's an important question to be asking because everything, life and business, is about relationships. And we don't want to ignore that.
Yep. And the 8th question, the final question is, who do I need to be today to blank? I know we've talked in a previous episode just about, looking out into the future about, as far as your results or what you're hoping to achieve, whether it's, a really successful launch or you're building your business or hosting a live event, and then kind of working your way back and asking the question, who do I need to be today to have that successful launch or to host that successful live event? So kind of going deep inside yourself and figuring that out, I think for me, makes me kind of stand stronger. I'm like, right, well, the me that's going to be hosting an amazing live event is not going to be timid and in the house and not doing my work and, whatever it is. So asking that question will then, I think, unleash a myriad of different results or questions or answers.
Absolutely. It's the simple be, do, have formula, right? Who you are being can produce the right actions, and the right actions can produce the right results. Mm-hmm. And what I believe is that every single human on this earth is capable of greatness. And it's greatness because we have to be able to overcome the doubt, the fear, the worry, the limiting beliefs that we can't be great. That's what makes it great, right? Most people are born and they can crawl and they can walk. Obviously, people with disabilities can't. But you don't go around saying he can walk. He is greatness. The greatness comes from overcoming and doing things that I believe we are all capable of, but most people are not willing to do. And so I believe we can all do great things that at one level, there's doubt that we've had to overcome or maybe still have to overcome. We didn't even know we are capable of. And so what we tend to do is let's say I ask you, the listener, hey, would you be willing to speak at my next event in front of 5,000 people? If you've never spoken before, immediately your heart's going to sink down into your belly and you're immediately going to say, oh, I could never do that. I can't speak in front of 5,000 people. Well, when you're right, you're right. And so what this question is maybe you can't speak in front of 5,000 people, but there is a version of you that can. So who do you need to be? What suit do you need to put on, right? What do you need to step into in order to be able to do that? And that's what this question is. Who do you need to be in order to rock that stage and blow the minds of 5,000 people? So that's really what we're talking about there with that question. There you go. 8 powerful questions that you can ask yourself every day. Don't try and ask all 8. Pick one. Pick 2. Start with, what do I want? What's important to me? And then pick another one that resonates with you. But every time you're in a breakdown, having an issue, a problem, frustration, this is when you want to ask the question. That's the habit we want to get you in. That's the discipline. When I'm not feeling 100%, when I'm not feeling awesome, that's when we ask the question, right? Tony Robbins also likes to say, turn frustration into fascination. I've told this little story before. I'm working on restoring an old Volkswagen thing. It's a long, massive project, and I really only work on it 2 days out of the month. And I watch all these YouTube videos, and I've had to deal with so many issues with this car. It's one thing after the other. And there's this one guy on there. He's got a quote that he lives by, and I love it. I'll never forget it. He says, when he's talking about restoring cars, he says, it's not a problem, it's a project. Mm-hmm. And it's only a problem, guys and gals, listeners, when we declare it a problem. And the question is the first step that will allow us the opportunity to get out of the problem and turn it into a game, a project, a fascinating discovery process. Questions are not anything new. This isn't revolutionary stuff. We run the risk of this being too simple and too mundane that you don't really take advantage of it. I would hate to have that happen here.
Right. I think these would all be great journal entries if you want to just take one on for the next week. And again, I think I've said a million times, I'm a big journaler. So taking one on, journal about it and just see what comes up.
So I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode all about how to ask better questions. I encourage you, stay in the question because the quality of your life is determined by the quality of questions you ask. You want different results? Start asking different questions. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. You can visit jameswedmore.com/iTunes. Phoebe and I now have 2 episodes. Yep, not 1, but 2 episodes coming out every week. That's every Monday and Thursday. And if you'd like to be featured in one of our upcoming listener questions of the week, head on over to mindyourbusinesspodcast.com where you can submit your question today. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode. Are you frustrated that no matter how hard you hustle, no matter how much you get done in a day, you still feel like you have little results to show for it? Do you feel like you're doing everything right, but there's still something missing? Well, what if there was an easier way? What if your business could be fun, effortless, and profitable? Phoebe and I have put together a free audio MP3 for you, compiling the 77 business affirmations for creating success from the inside out. And we want to give it to you absolutely free. This is your chance to rewire your brain for bigger results in your life and your business. To get instant access absolutely free, simply visit 77affirmations.com. That's the number 77affirmations.com.